Hi friends, welcome back. So it appears that Elon Musk is making a push to become the world's first trillionaire, and I would argue the world's biggest fraud. We got to talk about this stuff because frankly it moves the markets and there's a lot of money going in and out of this stuff. And I want to show you what's going on. It's all out in public and in the open. So this is the headlines today. Valuations at Elon Musk, SpaceX, and xAI set to soar in new deals. And basically, what's going on here is he's trying to cash in on his relationship with Trump. We're talking about two different companies, SpaceX, xAI. They're saying here they're trying to value SpaceX at $250 billion. And then we're going to value xAI, that's his AI company thing, at around $45 billion. And I laugh about this stuff because like these kind of companies that he's involved in, is a lot of it is hype. And it kind of makes sense why he talks about building cities on Mars all the time and talks about, sending lots and lots of humans to go, colonize a new planet and how we need to save the Earth by going to Mars. And I say it's ridiculous and fraudulent because like if you're really concerned about people, you would prove you can do the things here on Earth, right? But in Musk's point of view, it's like, hey, I need to cut all of this, government spending, but yet I want to get all this government spending to my company. So it's pretty ridiculous if you ask me, and that's why I say fraudulent. The one of the things that I think is going on also is there's a lot of people who are early investors of say SpaceX or xAI who are looking for ways to cash out. So this would be an interesting question is, will it go public? So at the moment, I was reading through everything. They're calling this a tender offer. It doesn't necessarily appear to be public, so I don't think you can buy shares if you want to. I mean, I'll tell you the truth. If SpaceX goes IPO, I think it would be a massive, crazy deal. I'm sure it'll be all over the news. Everyone's going to hear about it. What's the thing really worth? That's for anyone to guess because we're betting on whether or not SpaceX can put a bunch of people on Mars. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about. It's so ridiculous. But they're saying they're going to price these things at 135 a share at $250 billion. The other issue as well, which I thought was interesting, is his second in command. Her name is Shotwell. She's already, well, her name is Shotwell. She's taking shots at the government and things like that. And this was a quote from her talking about SpaceX. Her name is Gwynne Shotwell. And she says here, technology is easy, okay? Physics is easy. It's coming from her. Technology is easy. Physics is easy. People are hard, and regulator people are the hardest. So they're trying to make the case that, hey guys, we've got the tech. We're going to go to Mars. We are awesome, right? Tech is easy. Physics is easy. It's all easy. But the problem is just regulators, right? So that's the quote. People are hard. Regulator people are the hardest. Here's another quote from her. She says, all we ask is regulate industries, okay? Make them safe, make them right, make them fair. But we've got to go faster, much faster. And it's fascinating because her language is very similar to what you hear from Musk and many of his surrogates. They basically keep saying, oh, we're such an awesome company, and the only thing that's standing in our way is all this bureaucracy, etc. And then also, too, they want to get all these government contracts. And with the news coming out that they want to sell shares of, SpaceX and xAI, they want to get rich off said thing. So it kind of all fits in together. Another reason why Musk is corrupt, it seems, and it's not just Musk, there's actually other big companies involved. I'll read the headline and I'll kind of explain what's going on. This is all coming out today. It says in Amazon, talking about the company, Amazon, SpaceX, U.S. Labor Board's power is on the line. So with Trump coming into power and Musk, wielding all this, I guess you could say, potential windfalls, right, making a bunch of money and stuff, you cut a bunch of regulators. In this situation, it's the National Labor Board. Basically, if you're a worker, right, and you want to sue these big companies like your SpaceX or your Amazon, let's say you get hurt in the job or something like that. Well, if the company has the judges on their side, if there are no regulators in place, tough luck, right? You're the worker, screw you. Don't you believe in Elon Musk? Much faster, more innovation kind of thing. Like, why are you like busy getting hurt? It's your fault you got hurt. I'm making a joke, of course, but I want you to understand sort of this is why I how do I try to say it? Like, feel very frustrated when I see that essentially the big money is winning over and essentially the little guy, which is frankly what 99% of most of the planet is going to get hurt by this stuff because there's no protections in place. The other thing too that I guess these big companies are pushing for, right? Elon Musk is leading the charge, is basically to quell any kind of talk of unions. And so if they have their way, and one of the things that they're suing right now, and again, this is Musk and all his buddies. They essentially want to be able to give more power to the White House, that would be Trump, to replace whatever judges that they want, to essentially make it more favorable for them. The phrase that they're using, I thought was interesting. They refer to this stuff as judge shopping, right? And so the idea is that, if there's a case that you have to try regarding your labor practices, let's say you want to fire a bunch of people or someone gets hurt in the job and wants to sue you, whatever, find a judge that is, in your pocket and make things more suitable for you. And so these are the kind of stuff that doesn't necessarily get the headlines per se. It's not as exciting to talk about going to Mars and how awesome Mars is, right? But it matters quite a bit to your daily life. And I would argue, whether or not a company can choose which district to, do your case, right? If you sue them because you got hurt in the job and they're not paying you or whatever, or if they can essentially get away with replacing whatever judges they want to be in their favor, it just makes for a very corrupt system. So for me, all this stuff is pretty obvious. I don't think it's good, but I understand for the people who are out there on the YouTubes and on his platform Twitter, who are fans of Musk, are saying, "Oh my God, I'm so happy that Musk could become a trillionaire. That's fantastic," and they feel like inspired that Musk gets really rich by gaming the system. But for me, I just I already know my opinion and stuff. I just think it's just unfair that if you have the money and the influence, you can change the rules to suit you and not for others. And the argument they make is again, we have to get rid of regulators because they slow things down too much. And all these whining employees that want their salaries or they care about safety. I mean, they're just getting in the way. So that's how Musk thinks, and I find it ridiculous that people worship this kind of culture. Now, what's interesting though is the Airbus CEO actually chimed in talking about Elon Musk. So I'll read the headline and we'll go over to what they said. It says Airbus CEO, and this is in Europe, of course. Airbus CEO says SpaceX is successful because it's a selfish American company. That's the headline. Quote, Elon Musk SpaceX is not pleasing anybody except Elon Musk. And I'll read exactly more what he said. Again, this is coming from the Airbus CEO. I think what Americans and what SpaceX have done is amazing, right? So that's what he said. It's amazing and it's breaking some rules of what we're doing. It's very concentrated, where with European projects, we are very scattered and distributed. So as he kind of goes on, and I'll read more, but he's basically making the case that we couldn't, in the Airbus situation in Europe, couldn't do the same kind of things that Elon Musk is doing via either, buy off whatever judges, buy off politicians, or have monopolies in certain, sectors, etc. And he's also making the case it's just all about, making Elon rich. So he's not saying that, hey, they're not an amazing company, they're doing fantastic, just that you couldn't get away with the kind of stuff that they're doing. And also, perfectly frank, yeah, sure, if you don't care about safety and just hurt your workers, you could probably go a lot faster, right? Or for example, just make them work overtime, whatever. It's also saying too, in Europe, again, quote from the Airbus CEO, in Europe, we tend to do the opposite. And we're talking about monopolies or not. And I'll just read the quote and I'll explain it. It says here, Airbus makes 20%, we buy 80%. Okay. So when they're doing the operations at Airbus, they're 20% say in-house, 80% they're essentially giving business to other companies in Europe, right? And by buying 80%, meaning that we're buying stuff from other, suppliers and sourcing from other companies. And by buying 80%, you have a large supply base, which is pleasing everybody. So that's the case that he's making over Airbus. Then he talks about Elon Musk. Well, Elon Musk SpaceX is not pleasing anybody except Elon Musk. He also says here too, again, this is coming from Airbus CEO, and I think it's just really fascinating the stuff that he says. Though Forrest suggested that SpaceX would run afoul of European antitrust regulations, describing it as a, quote, this is how he describes SpaceX, a super concentrated model that actually in Europe we are not allowed to think of. There's little room to find more ways of cooperating in Europe to create scale. I just, and you guys can make your own decision. I think the opposite would be, say, Chris, you're just stupid. Monopolies and making the first trillionaire is good for society. We don't need to pay workers anything, right? Because again, their safety, their concerns with the workers is small compared to building cities on Mars. And think how awesome that is. That's the stuff that Musk and his fanboys would talk about. And this is why I go back to the fraudulent thing, because I don't think we're building cities on on Mars anytime soon. We haven't even landed a rocket there, let alone build cities. We haven't even landed one of Musk's rocket. I'm referring to Musk rockets. We haven't even referred to landed Musk rockets on the moon. Yes, other entities have done that, but not Musk. And people keep acting like Musk is so fantastic when he hasn't even delivered on those things. So, we're already essentially figuring out ways to cash out. Could this be the peak? Like when they, and this is always something you want to ask yourself, is like these kind of things, if they're so good, why are they selling their ownership of Set It, right? And when they're pumping up these sort of, crazy dreams and then now selling it to you. And I guess that this tender offer is going to be in December is what they're saying here. Again, valuing SpaceX at turn 50 billion and valuing xAI at 45 billion. Why are they selling? That's a question I ask. And who's buying? But to be fair, our markets are driven by hype, and Musk is the master of hype. Not necessarily delivering, but the master of hype. And that's the world that we live in. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on this thing. What do you think about how Musk and the big companies and his buddies, are handling the courts and the labor board? What do you think about in Europe? And I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts for those of you in Europe. Do you think, like, for example, that just your opinion, do you think regulators are too strict there? Do you think there should be more monopolies in Europe, right? Is it bad to have, one company buy supplies from other companies and give business, around the say European Union? Is it better just to have one company concentrate everything and maybe you can streamline better? I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. I want to get your opinion on that. And you already sort of shared my opinion. Actually, I was asking my wife about this yesterday. We were talking about it. Is it okay to say have the top three richest people in the USA, own more than the bottom 50%? Is that a good system? Because the argument you would make as well, that represents USA because, if you have great ideas, you can be the richest ever. And it's interesting. My wife, the first thing she said, she's like, well, then essentially you're creating a slave system to where there is no middle and you're, essentially slave, like you're at the bottom and there's just no way to ever go up. Like you have the illusion that you can become the Musk or the Bezos or whatever, but it's not true. It's the kind of stuff my wife and I talk about because, and I understand the idea, and I don't want everyone to discount investing because I think you should do it. I think you should save. I don't want to ever give the impression that you can never move up in society because that's not true. You can, but I also want to be realistic about this stuff. Is that I think when you have these kind of systems in place where if you start out as a worker, which most of us do, and if your work can abuse you in any number of ways, and you have no repercussions, I think the balance is way too in favor of the employer, right, of the boss. But that's going to depend on the industry that you're in, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. So I get different people's opinion on this stuff, but this idea of judge shopping sounds pretty corrupt to me. To me, it's obvious, but like I said, this Musk dude has a lot of fans out there, and that's the majority of the country. They voted for this kind of system, right? But I think a lot of people don't actually pay attention to more the intricacies of it. I think they more just fall for the sort of the hopes and the dreams, like, oh, we're going to Mars. Oh, sounds fantastic, yay! And and then kind of ignore all the other stuff. And I guess one way to put it would be like, this is all a bread and circus, right? Essentially to distract the masses from their real problems of just putting food on their table. And as long as they have the gladiator games going and people are fighting and launching rockets, and they're excited. Because that's one thing that people say all the time. They say, oh, Chris, you're so dumb. Don't you see Elon Musk is really cool? He's got rockets. It's like, okay. I can see the rockets and depends how useful they are. And if you want to essentially just take tax dollars and blow it up, that's essentially really what it boils down to. And then he takes that sort of illusion of this, blowing up your tax dollars and says, look, all these great things are coming in the future. Just cut more, regulators and we can go even faster. And then they, sell their shares to their, other buddies or whatever, and just keeping the Ponzi going basically. So anyway, I just want to hear your thoughts on this, and I'll catch you on the next video.